Now, some of the big areas in risk assessment, also known as these environmental stressor, are things that we would say tax the environment, like fossil fuel, nuclear power, and development. But these are also really good because fossil fuels give us transportation, nuclear power giving us electricity, development giving us homes and shelter. Now, when these risk assessments are done, the scientists also have to do what is known as a cost-benefit analysis to see whether the cost is greater than the benefit or the benefit being greater than the cost. So let's look at an example here, McDonald's. Now, McDonald's serves very inexpensive, cheap, fast, easy food. Well, there's a cost that goes along with this food that McDonald's produces. We talked about a little bit obesity earlier, or heart disease. Now, is the cost of McDonald's food greater than the benefit, it being very cheap and easy? Now, think of the cost being those healthcare costs for treating diabetes or treating heart disease later in life. Is that greater than the benefit of being able to feed these people? Here's some other ones I want you to think about. Nuclear waste or nuclear energy. Yes, it gives us clean energy, but the waste stays radioactive for thousands of years. Cost benefit. Is the cost greater than the benefit? Also here, renewable energy sources like hydroelectricity. Now, with hydroelectricity, some of the costs are you have to build this reservoir up that can displace many people. You can have sediment build up here, and you also have migrating fish can't get through here. So is this cost or those costs, do they outweigh the benefit of our human need for clean renewable electricity? So there are different steps in addressing environmental problems. First up, they do this scientific assessment. They take the scientific method, they test to see whether something actually is causing something else to occur, and then from that, they take that information and they put it through a risk analysis, looking at the cost to benefit ratio, whether something benefits greater than the cost or the cost greater than the benefit. And then, if the cost is greater than the benefit, we know that we have a problem here, something that we have to do something about. And the first step after that is to educate the public. And education is one of the number one solutions in many problems. By educating, you can reduce so many different types of problems. And then from educating your public, you get them involved. And involvement will occur, and then from their involvement, they will demand action by their politicians. And then with the political action, you can get something into law, and then from there, you can look to see, you can evaluate whether that action, political action, actually had some type of outcome, if it remediated the problem or somehow controlled the problem. A good example of this is looking at Lake Washington and eutrophication. Now, before human development, Lake Washington used to be a very deep, species-rich lake. But after industry coming in and runoff from the industry putting nutrients into the lake, you get what is known as eutrophication, where you get this buildup of nutrients, and then the plants do really well because the nutrients is there, and then since the plants do really well, they have a life cycle, and when they die, bacteria thrive, and bacteria, when they thrive to decompose the plants, they suck all the oxygen out of the water, and all the dead debris of the plants and bacteria build up on the bottom, so you get a buildup of sediment and reduction in the oxygen available in the lake, so it kills fish. Eutrophication. So one of the last things we look at here in Chapter 2 is this thing called the Tragedy of the Commons. And Tragedy of the Commons was an essay that was published in the journal Science by Garrett Hardin that says that our inability to solve complex environmental problems is the result of the struggle between short-term individual welfare and long-term environmental sustainability. So the main point behind the tragedy of the commons is, how do we share or manage our shared resources? Like, take the atmosphere for instance. There are no borders or boundaries to the atmosphere. We can't put a fence around it and say, I'm sorry, China, you can't use this. No, this is a shared resource between our countries and between all countries. So how do we manage certain air pollution or certain overuse of a resource in one country to another? It's all about the short-term individual welfare and not thinking about the long-term effect of misusing these resources. So examples like carbon dioxide output. See, we all want to move all over the place and transport. Well, when we burn the fossil fuels, we're putting out carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and it being a greenhouse gas, you have more absorption of UV radiation, causing warmer temperatures in the atmosphere, causing our temperatures over the long term to increase. Also fishing, looking at our oceans. Individuals of different countries want to feed their population or have sustainable amounts of food. Well, with an increasing population, how can you manage these shared resources of our ocean between different countries? They're just going to go out and harvest as much as they can to fulfill their needs in their countries, where they could potentially overuse or misuse this resource. Also waste. Where do we put our waste? Some countries just dumping their waste here into the ocean. Now, how do we manage that from country to country?